The sound of metal echoed through the long, silent hallway of ADX Florence, the most secure prison in America. The lights flickered for a split second, and in that brief darkness, inmate Daniel Carter thought he heard something, a voice whispering his name. But that was impossible. No one was near him. In ADX, each man lived alone, locked inside a concrete box for 23 hours a day. There were no voices, no footsteps, just the hum of the air vent and the ticking of time that never seemed to move. Daniel pressed his ear to the cold steel door, trying to hear it again. Then it came, a soft knock just 2 times. Knock, knock. His heart jumped. Inmates were not allowed to communicate, and there was no way for anyone to reach his cell without guards noticing. Still, the knocking came again. Louder this time. Then a whisper through the vent. "You're not alone in here, Carter." He froze. The vent was supposed to carry filtered air, not voices. For a moment, he wondered if he was losing his mind. After all, in solitary confinement, days and nights blur together. Prisoners often talk to themselves, or worse, start hearing things that aren't real. Daniel took a deep breath and whispered back, "Who's there?" But there was only silence, until a faint laugh echoed through the vent, sending chills down his spine. And just like that, the lights went out completely. Total darkness. The hum of the air system stopped. For the first time in years, the Supermax, built to never fail, was silent. That was when Daniel realized something was wrong, something that even the guards didn't expect. Hours earlier, the day had started like every other at ADX Florence. The morning buzzer sounded at exactly 6 a.m. The cell doors didn't open, of course. They never did. Instead, Daniel's breakfast tray slid through a narrow slot in his door. 2 boiled eggs, a slice of bread, and a small carton of milk. He sat on his bed, a concrete block with a thin mattress, and stared at the wall. There was no window to the outside world, only a narrow slit of reinforced glass that faced a concrete barrier. He couldn't see the sky. He couldn't hear the wind. For 15 years, that was his world. He had been sent here after escaping another federal prison years ago. They said he was too smart, too dangerous. Here, there were no chances to escape. Every inch of ADX Florence was designed to keep men like him locked away, forever. At 9 a.m., the guards came for his 1 hour of exercise. 2 of them stood outside his cell while another ordered him to back up against the wall. He turned around slowly, placing his hands through the slots so they could cuff him. The door opened just enough for him to step out, shackled from wrist to ankles. They led him down a corridor to a small yard surrounded by 20-foot walls and covered with wire mesh. It was like being inside a giant cage under the open sky. He looked up. It was the only time he saw sunlight. For that hour, he paced in slow circles, breathing the cold Colorado air, feeling both free and trapped at the same time. Back in his cell, Daniel sat on his bed and thought about the voice he'd heard before the blackout. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe it was his mind playing tricks. But when the power went out again that night, and the same whisper came through the vents saying, "You don't belong here forever," Daniel's blood ran cold. He shouted for the guards, but no one answered. The cameras in the hall had gone dark. The prison known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, built to be escape-proof, unbreakable, and silent, suddenly felt alive. And Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something inside those concrete walls was watching him. He moved closer to the door, listening for any sound. Then, out of nowhere, a loud metallic bang echoed through the corridor, followed by the distant sound of someone screaming. It didn't sound like fear, it sounded like pain. And then he heard it again through the vent, the same whisper, only louder this time. "They don't tell you everything about solitary, do they, Carter?" Daniel's heart pounded. He stepped back, his eyes darting around the dark cell. "Who are you?" he shouted. But the answer came in a whisper that sent a chill crawling down his spine. "Someone who found a way out." Before Daniel could respond, the door lock clicked. He froze. That sound wasn't supposed to happen unless a guard used a keycard. Slowly, the door creaked open an inch, enough for a thin strip of light to spill into the room. Daniel took a step forward, his breath shallow, wondering if this was his mind breaking, or if something far worse had just begun. Daniel's pulse thudded in his ears as the heavy door stood half open. He didn't dare move at first. In ADX Florence, a door never opened by accident. Every sound, every flicker of light was controlled by the prison's tight system. But now, standing in the silence, Daniel knew something was off. "Hello?" he called out softly, his voice trembling. No answer. The corridor outside was dim, lit only by red emergency lights glowing along the floor. It was the kind of light that made the walls look like they were bleeding. He took a small step forward, his chains clinking softly, and peered out. Every other cell was closed. No guards. No voices. Only that deep hum of silence that felt heavier than the concrete around him. He pushed the door a little wider. The hallway stretched long and empty. Then he noticed something on the floor, a small, folded piece of paper. His breath caught. Notes didn't exist in ADX Florence. Everything was monitored. Every word written or spoken was recorded. He bent down, picked it up, and unfolded it carefully. There were just 4 words written in shaky handwriting. "It's not what it seems." Daniel froze. The whisper he'd heard earlier came back to his mind, someone who found a way out. He turned his head toward the vent again, but there was nothing. No sound. No whisper. Just the cold air blowing against his neck. He felt the paper in his palm again, reading those words over and over. What wasn't what it seemed? This place? The people? Or maybe the isolation itself? A sudden crash made him jump. A tray of metal clattered down the hallway, echoing like thunder. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, breathing fast. At the far end of the corridor, a shape moved, quick, shadowy, human. Then it was gone. "Guard?" he called out, voice cracking. Still nothing. He took a few slow steps forward, each one scraping softly on the polished concrete. He reached the end of the hallway and saw something strange, an open security gate. That was impossible. The gates were controlled from the main station, hundreds of feet away. He looked around again, nervous but curious, and stepped through. Inside was a narrow stairwell that led down to a lower level. It was darker there. The air felt heavier. Daniel could smell something faintly metallic, like blood or rust. He swallowed hard, trying to calm himself. Halfway down the stairs, he heard it again. The whisper. "Keep going, Daniel." He froze. "Who are you?" This time, the voice was clearer, coming from below. "You think solitary's about punishment. But that's just the myth. The reality is much worse." Daniel gripped the rail and took one more step. Then another. His heart hammered in his chest, but curiosity was stronger than fear now. He reached the bottom of the stairs, where a dim light flickered overhead. The room before him looked like a basement, old pipes, concrete walls, and a large metal door with a red warning sign that read restricted access. The voice came again, closer this time. "Behind that door, you'll see the truth." Daniel hesitated. What truth? But there was no answer, only silence. He pressed his ear against the door. Nothing. Then, just as he was about to step back, the door creaked open a few inches by itself. Cold air rushed out, smelling of dust and iron. He peeked inside. The room was lined with old surveillance monitors, dozens of them. Each one showed a cell, but the images were strange. Some showed empty rooms, others showed inmates, except they weren't moving. They were frozen, sitting, standing, staring at the walls like statues. Daniel stepped closer. On one screen, he saw himself, sitting on his bed, not moving, not blinking. The timestamp showed it was now. He stumbled backward, staring at the screen. "That's not possible," he whispered. He waved his hand in front of his face, but on the monitor, the version of him didn't move. It just sat there, still as stone. Then, slowly, the image on the monitor turned its head and looked directly into the camera, directly at him. Daniel's blood ran cold. The screen flickered, and suddenly all the other monitors showed the same thing. Dozens of inmates turning their heads at once, all looking into the cameras, all staring straight at him. Then the whisper came again, not from the vent this time, but from every speaker in the room. "You've been here longer than you think, Daniel. You never left your cell." The lights flickered again. The room grew darker. He tried to run, but the stairwell behind him was gone, replaced by solid concrete. He was trapped. He turned back to the monitors and saw his own cell door, closed again, his body still sitting motionless on the bed. Daniel fell to his knees, clutching his head. No, this isn't real. But as the lights dimmed one last time, a soft, almost calm voice whispered in his ear. This is solitary confinement, Daniel. The myth is freedom. The reality is you never left. The monitors went black, and the silence of ADX Florence returned, cold, endless, and real.